Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. I think we're live. Let us know if we're live. Might take a minute. Some of you guys might be buried under snow. Hence our poll this morning, which we'll get to. I'm excited about this trading week, as I'll tell you in a minute. The first one I'm excited about all year, and there's a reason for that. AV's good. Okay, cool. Let's do this then in just a minute. Yes, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Okay. Screen is good. Audio is good. We'll give it like one more minute. All right. Murph is saying that he's got 1 foot of snow. John, buried deep eastern. John, how much snow did you get in eastern Long Island? Did you get a foot? Yeah, so if you want to take the poll, it's just for fun, right? But the poll essentially is this morning. It's how much snow did you get, right? So 3 options. 80% of you said under 1 foot. 7% are saying more than 2 feet, and 13% of you live in Florida or Southern California or somewhere else where there's no snow, right? About 14 inches. Gotcha. So a little bit over a foot. Very nice. In Long Island. Cool. I know Long Island very well. Very good. Okay. Yeah, of course, on the drifts. Yeah, that goes without saying. Let's get started. I'm going to close the poll in just a minute. And, these polls are just for fun, but I think it helps to kind of lighten the mood a little bit. So let me just here's what we're going to cover this morning. It's going to be a bit different. So, first of all, good morning, right? This is our Set the Market morning call here at thesteadytrader.com. And if you're new, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's obviously free. And if you want to give us a thumbs up like, that would really help us being able to continue growing the show. We're going to get to silver, which is up another 7.5% this morning. We've been talking about silver for 2 years, I think. So hopefully everyone's been listening. We'll talk about that in a minute. However, I'd like to start off with a story. Okay, so when we come into the month of January, after 26 years of sitting in this seat, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that it has been most beneficial for me, in the month of January to do less is more. Bring this down a little bit. Less is more. Certainly in the first half of January, really, but the whole month, kind of, for the most part. The month of January, as you're probably finding out, is very choppy, right? The index goes sideways, for example, right, like this year, but silver goes vertical, energy stocks go vertical. Note, we've been talking about that for a long time, right? But I usually really hardly do much at all in the month of January. We change portfolio constructions and those kind of things, but we don't really go in and do a whole lot in terms of actual trading in any meaningful fashion. And the reason for that is quite simple. As I said, it's very choppy. So I'm going to give you a quick story here, a background on just an extreme example of this. I have an acquaintance of mine. I'm going to call him a friend at this point. I've known him for a long time. And he is a macro trader. He dabbles, he's very serious. It's not dabbling. He's a very astute macro trader. He uses almost exclusively futures to express his views, which is what a lot of macro people do, including myself. He typically trades, I'm going to say 3 months a year. About 3 months a year. And he's probably the most successful trader that I know. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to make people understand that being around the computer all day long every day, clicking around, is actually, not the most profitable way of making money in the markets. Now, if one isn't exclusively a day trader, that's a different story, because then that's your time frame. But for the most part, I have found, and I can give you many, many more stories like this, that making sure we're concentrating our time and effort on doing stuff in the markets when the odds are actually there. And this is not a seasonality question. It can be to some extent, but there's a huge over-reliance right now on seasonality. I see it, and it's a bull market phenomena. And a lot of people are going to lose their shirt betting on seasonality over time, because that's what always happens. It just hasn't happened in 15 years, but it will. And so if you can really pick your spots and, for example, stay out of the mess in January, which has been one of my core rules, I think it goes a very long way. Because one of the worst things that I can do for myself is come into January, try to do something left, right, up, and down, and force myself into trading things. There's been great moves this year, but guess what? Positioning for those moves wasn't a matter of doing it come January 2nd, 3rd, or whatever the first trading day was of the year. It was a matter of positioning, quite frankly, a year ago, or at least a few months ago, depending on your time frame. So this week, and I'm getting to my point, is really, quite frankly, the first week of this year where, for me, I'm actually excited and interested in the markets from a more proactive perspective, like the first time. And there's a reason for that. Also, in terms of what's going on, we have a big earnings week this week. I know a lot of people don't understand the importance of this, but I'm telling you, the World Economic Forum Davos meetings are really, really important. You usually don't see big movements in markets because there's so many important meetings that take place there. This was last week, of course, and so many headlines, as you saw the headlines coming. So now people go back to their trading desks, right, or review everything that happened, and they feel a bit more confident to do something, or may have to do something based on what transpired. So when I look at this week here today, this is the last full trading week of January, which is incredible to think. I think it is. Let me just check at today's the 26th, yeah, of course, so it's the last trading week. So it's really the first week I'm interested in the market, and I think this could be the week when the equity markets on an index level, because the S&P has essentially been asleep at the wheel, is likely going to start doing something, okay? So let's talk about silver, and then we're going to talk about one specific stock as well. So silver, let me just give you a bit of perspective of what's going on. So first of all, the move year to date in silver, I think it's up like 50%. That's the blue line on your screen that you've been looking at here for the past few minutes. However, this is what I keep pointing out to people, and sometimes it rubs people the wrong way. The price of silver, it wasn't a matter of positioning for this 2 days ago or 2 weeks ago, right? And here is why. So let me go through we call it our three-pronged process. It's essentially the trifecta process. It all starts with a trend, right? So those of you guys that have the Market Rover, which is our trend-following software, I don't know how people navigate markets without having a trend-following process. I think it's impossible over time. So you can see the green background color, right? So for the most part, with just a few days in between of exception, the green background color, so the bullish trend, which is when the trend started, which started in March of 2024, now has silver up 315%. You know how many people are up 315% in silver? Almost none, right? Relatively speaking, of course, right? And it's because there's no process. Now, if you're more trading oriented, right, you may have picked up the latest buy signal from a momentum perspective, which came on the 10th of November, not last week, definitely not this morning, and even not a month ago. It came on November 10th. Since then, silver is now up with this morning's move, probably up north of 110%. Okay? So chart chasing is really a losing battle over time. Of course, what we're likely going to start seeing now is silver getting very overbought pretty soon. So this is where our third part of the process comes in. That's what we call the Vertical X Pro, is to find extremely overbought and oversold situations. So silver got extremely overbought, for example, on the 26th of December, and then consolidated for about a week or so, which was the right move. And then it continued, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if today is the day when we get an extreme overbought reading in silver once again. We'll have to see how the day goes. So if you don't have a process, and most people don't, I would really encourage you to start thinking about that. You can get in touch with our team, making sure you have a trend following process, which is absolutely paramount. Make sure you have a momentum process, and then also know when things get extreme. Most people have neither, right? So that's kind of the process. Now, before we speak about a very specific stock, which I think is an interesting idea here, I do want to quickly talk about this week's strategy session. So as you guys know, every week we do a strategy session. This week, we're doing it on basically the next giant wave of AI opportunity. And no, it's not NVIDIA, like not even close. So if you are not positioned in the next wave of AI, and it's not even tech, it's actually not tech, right? Make sure you join us. It's actually today, Monday, here in a few hours, we're doing our session, our strategy session for the week, and I will teach you and sort of go through all the research in our strategy session about what that opportunity is and why it's in our view, the only logical next wave of AI related opportunity. And if you join, you will get access to our S&P 500 Rethinking the S&P playbook as well. So you can sign up for that. That's taking place today at noon Eastern, so that's 9 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast. And hopefully we'll be able to see as many of you as possible there. And so where are we now? So we talked about, I gave you the story about, not trading too much or making sure we are patient about picking our spots in the markets with my colleague. His name is actually John, the gentleman I talked to you about before. We talked about silver. We talked about earnings. We talked about this being the first week, for me personally at least, of 2026 where I'm actually excited about the markets. I'm actually going to start trading like in a more meaningful fashion. I've done a couple things here and there, but really nothing in any meaningful fashion. And now we'll talk about one specific stock. So let's get into it. So the particular stock that I'm looking at, it's actually a transportation company, and I'm going to give you the ticker. It's CSX. Now, before we continue, let me just make sure that everyone knows this is not a recommendation, right? Like not even close. It's simply an idea through the lens of research, okay? So if we just go by the chart, and as you know, that's an oversimplification, but CSX Corp, which is a railroad company, has essentially done nothing, like zero, like literally not a penny, since about February of 2022. So 23, 24, 25, I guess 4 years actually now. Yes, of course, we're in 26. So for 4 years, completely dead ass nothing, right? So, and which, by the way, I think that's what the S&P is going to do, probably for 5 to 10 years. I know people don't want to hear that, and I could be wrong, but I do think that's the most likely and scenario going forward. So here is what you're looking at. You're looking at, I'm just going with the chart for a minute, right? And there's a reason actually why this company could go higher from a fundamental and structural perspective, but I think for the interest of time, we're gonna skip that part for now. But CSX is in a very interesting spot where I think this company's stock price could go higher. Now, of course, that's nice to say, and it's nice to draw a little box on the screen, but way more importantly, and that's my point, is to actually have a process, right? So instead of just winging this by doodling a square box in the chart, which is a good starting point, unfortunately it's not enough, let's understand where the trend is. So this is where we use our market, or we're trend following software, right? And the trend started not this morning, not yesterday, but it started on the 4th of September of last year. Since then, the stock is up about 13, 14%. Nothing major, but we have a bullish trend, okay? So we have the tailwinds of an actual confirmed trend. We might start to see momentum pick up. I think that's the next logical move. And then this should be a pretty good situation. As always with stocks, make sure you know when the earnings report is. I think CSX has its earnings on, if this is correct here, and you always go check the official website for the data, right? Yeah, on April, they just reported numbers next week. I think they even have a dividend payment coming up. So they're out of the woods in terms of the earnings report for itself, right? There's obviously competitors that are going to report earnings. So CSX to me, an interesting one. Hope it helps, folks. Thanks for joining. Happy Monday. Again, for me, for what it's worth, this is the first actual trading week of the year here this year that I'm excited about. Again, earnings, we're going to get a lot of insight, maybe some volatility. We shall see. And with that, I'll see you guys tomorrow back here in Set the Market. We have a full week of, I think it's the first week of 2026 where we have a full series Monday through Thursday of the Set the Market morning call. So I'm excited to be here, folks. Have a good start to the week, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow. Or if you're a Set the Market member, if you are a Trade House member, we'll see you over there in a few minutes. Take care.